You're listening to Season 3 of That's Not How a Baby Sleeps. I'm your host, Alicia Daishon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Eleni Katsinis. We're not your average sleep consultants, no cry it out or sleep training at all for that matter.
How are you? How was the weekend?
The Bills lost their playoff game, so that was a very sad thing. Josh Allen was crying, and my one nephew was like, "Aw, Josh, it's okay, buddy. I know." It was so sweet. It was sad but sweet. So that was a big highlight of the weekend. But other than that, it was good. For Buffalo, it was very sad, but we'll be okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
It's really hard when your football team loses. I don't know.
It's very hard. Bills are like the most dedicated, loyal fans. Like, I think we won like a silly thing. I don't know. Something happened where Bills won like something or just like voted top like best fans, because we really are. Like, we're so dedicated, and like we keep losing and we keep like, showing up every year, buying the season tickets, going in the cold, all the things, and then we just don't make it to the Super Bowl. But one day. And they fired the head coach too.
Okay.
Yeah, which everyone's sad about that, but I don't know. It's interesting. I know you don't care about football.
No, it's. I mean, Lane does. He just like the Eagles did nothing and didn't even get into the playoffs this year. So right? Yeah, and that's his thing.
I don't know. I thought they were. Maybe they lost.
Maybe they lost right off the bat. I just know he hasn't really been interested in it in the last little while. Like, he did his whole fantasy football thing at the beginning of the year, and that was annoying because that never goes well for him. And looking at his phone and freaking out, and I'm like, okay, I'm down. Yeah, we're in Canada, so like hockey is a really big thing here, and like we have the Canucks, and like I have no interest in it because I feel like every year it's like, yeah, this is gonna be the year, and it's not. It's never. Yeah. I just laugh when Lane says that now. I'm like, I'm not. Yeah.
Have you been to a hockey game?
No.
I feel like you would like it. I don't know why. I just feel like you would. It's exciting. What?
They have wine.
Yeah,
so
that. And just like hanging out and like the excitement of it, and like they get into fights. Like the first game I ever went to, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're fighting.
I would enjoy that.
It's
I would enjoy that. I think
it's fun.
Lane's been talking about taking Aylin to one, so maybe when Luna's a little bit older or something, then we can all go. But yeah, we haven't done it yet, and I've never been, which is kind of sad, I guess, because I mean, I live on the island now, but we did live on the mainland for a really long time, and I know Lane's definitely been to hockey games and stuff. But yeah, sports not really my thing. Wine is, so.
Anywhere there's wine,
I'll go.
That's really funny.
Gosh. Okay, so yeah, I did a poll on my Instagram, and everyone was like bed sharing. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and just transitioning away. And I've actually got quite a few questions on TikTok. I didn't even do the poll on TikTok, but quite a few people were like, I don't know how to do this. My 8-month-old, I put them in their crib last night, and they were crying for like an hour, and I was just like trying to like intermittently comfort them. And I was like, she's like, I just feel like maybe it's just better to keep bed sharing. I'm like, yeah, if you want to do that, you should keep doing that. But also, we have a podcast episode coming out. So listen to that. But I think that's a big thing too, is like a lot of people feel like they absolutely have to. Like, it's like, we get lots of questions at like a certain age. When do we need to stop bed sharing? I'm like, whenever you want. Whenever you're like, I don't like doing this anymore, go away.
Yeah.
That's kind of my answer. Like Luna we had her sidecar crib that she half slept in, but she was in our bed consistently for 13 months. And then it was like very, very gradual that we moved her in with her sister. It was like mostly naps at first, and then like the first part of the night and whatnot. So we'll talk about all that. But like, if it works for your family, you should keep doing it as long as you're set up in the safest way possible. Then there's really no reason to not do it.
Yeah.
I know people will scare you and say that it creates children that are very dependent on you, but we know that's not true. Just from an attachment aspect, dependence actually creates independence. It nurtures that true independence, not forced independence where you just like leave them to cry alone and stuff. But yeah, definitely okay to keep doing it if it works for you guys. But we're going to talk about how to do that or make that transition without any sleep training and stuff today. But I do think it is really important to understand, just from an attachment aspect, your children, especially in the first year, they connect and attach to you through the senses. So if they can't see you, hear you, smell you, touch you, they are going to signal to make sure that you're still there. It's a survival mechanism. So it is really normal that they want to be in close contact with you. So again, normalizing the fact that it is okay to bed share. When we start to see attachment develop and grow, if everything is going well, then they're able to kind of move on to that second stage of attachment in year 2. All this information is from Dr. Gordon Neufeld, by the way. I should probably mention that. But that allows them to kind of start to be able to hold on a little bit better when separated from you, like still feel connected, still feel attached as they're able to move on to that second stage of attachment. So I find that it is a little bit easier to start your transition kind of in the toddler stage. I know a lot of sleep trainers would disagree, and it's like, no, don't bed share from day one. But I have a really difficult time getting a baby into a crib if they've been bed sharing like past 9 months, I'd say. And a lot of parents are doing that for that kind of that first year. And a lot of families will be like, I want them to sleep in a crib. And I'm like, let's just do something else.
Yeah.
Because a crib, it's especially if we're taking like an attachment based gentle approach to sleep, we're likely supporting our child to sleep. And it is really difficult to support them to sleep and then try to transfer them into a crib on probably the lowest setting possible. So that's kind of where we prefer to take a different approach and do things like floor beds or just bigger beds where you're able to like actually lay with your child and support them that way.
Yeah, like after the 9-month mark, I remember working with people and they're like, oh, they're 10 months old and my pediatrician's telling me they have to go in their crib, or my mother-in-law is telling me they have to go in their crib. I'm like, well, they don't have to do anything. They can try. And then they do try the crib and they feel like they're failing because their baby's not responding well. It's because they're probably really sensitive to the fact that they don't want to be separated from you, because especially they've been bed sharing for so long. And like we said, if you enjoy it and you're getting better sleep with it, there's nothing wrong with doing it until you're fine with it. And the biggest thing is like the fear of never getting your child out of their bed if you start. Like a lot of people will say that. And we get a lot of people that are super scared to even try because they have that fear that they're going to have a 10-year-old in their bed, which we know is not true, because we both, our families have bed shared here and there for years since our kids have been babies, and they're definitely out of our bed, but then sometimes they come back in our bed, and there's nothing wrong with those things. And just like understanding, like you said, the first year, we recommend room sharing for at least a year. I mean, of course, 6 months minimum, but if you can make it to the year, that's great. Like, especially how your home's set up. You need to think about like culturally too. Like, we're the only country that really shames the bed sharing world because we're pushing the independence really early. And in other countries, they're bed sharing or room sharing for like years, like 5+ years. And then when they're done sleeping with their parents, they go in a room with their siblings. So like they're always with somebody. Like it's just to normalize that. And it's just funny. The one night Nora said, why do you and dad get to sleep in a bed together and I have to be alone? And I'm like, oh, like, I don't know. That makes sense. That's our society. That's just like how it is. And it's so true. And she's going to be 6 and she understands that, like you said, after a year old, you can verbalize and communicate better with your child about the transition. That's why it's like, if you can try to do it the whole year.
And I feel like too, like it's easier to deal with boundaries as a toddler and explain those boundaries. You're still likely going to be met with some emotions and have to support your child through that and stuff. But when we're trying to, I find it more difficult to transition a baby, especially over that 9-month mark, into their own sleep space personally, which is why I'm like, just do it until 12 months and then you can kind of start gradually transitioning. But we'll still talk about how to do that earlier in like the baby stage. Like maybe you're through like the 4-month developmental progression. You're like, I want to move away from bed sharing. Sure. Like we can definitely work on that. I'm working on that right now with a girlfriend of mine. It's not impossible. It's just easier to not, in my opinion. But we can still do it without any type of like typical sleep training. It's funny because I've been trying not to say like traditional sleep training methods anymore because I just don't think it's traditional at all. I think it's
like the term.
I don't like the term anymore. It's making me mad. I'm like separation-based sleep training because I just don't think there's anything traditional about sleep training.
No, you're so right. And a lot of families we work with will start their babies in a separate space, like a crib next to them, and a crib across the room, and then their first wake up, which like we're going to talk about, if they're set up for optimal sleep, will hopefully be 4 or 5 hours into their night. And then they bring them into bed because after that, they might wake up every couple hours after that, which is all very normal. But at least the mom or dad or both will get that nice long stretch in the beginning of the night to sleep on their own. And then they're totally fine with bringing their babies halfway through the night. And that's another thing to just think about. Like if you are ready for this transition, and you do it and it's going great, that's great. But it's okay if you go back to, they come in your bed sometimes, or it's okay if you do it half and half. Like we always say, this is not going to be forever. It's a season and they ebb and flow.
Yeah. It's not an all or nothing thing. Like you can make this plan for your transition fit what works for your family.
Yeah.
I mean, like I was the same with our transition when we started to gradually move away. Luna went into her bed with her sister. She doesn't sleep alone. My girls sleep together in the same bed still. at 4 and 7, which I love. But she would come into bed at some point in time in the night with us. Initially, it was like earlier in the night if she was still waking up at night, but like up until I think it was, probably in the last 6 months, she woke up at some point in time and came into bed with us. And then I switched spots with her sister so that she thought it's me, and now she just cuddles her, and it's great. It works out really well. And she sleeps all the way through the night. And we still lay with her while she falls asleep or rock her to sleep like my husband. Won't do that though, because she's too big. But yeah, like it's not an all or nothing thing. You can do whatever works best for your family. But I think one of the biggest things that people miss is like your child needs to absolutely love their sleep space or their new sleep space in order to feel comfortable and safe enough to sleep there consistently. So starting off with like, if we're dealing with an older child, like you can have them involved in like setting up the room, picking out the sheets, like make it really exciting for them. It's not like it's going to 100% work, but you want to get them excited about it. And that tends to help a little bit. And then if we're dealing with a baby who we're like, okay, we're moving into a crib, they need to be spending a lot of time in that crib during the day, playing, having a good time. So like going in the room, laying them in their crib, playing peekaboo, turning the lights on and off. They need to actually release endorphins in the sleep space in order to feel safe enough to sleep there and connect sleep cycles eventually. They need to absolutely love it in there. So spending a ton of time in there. If you are opting for a floor bed, same thing, like spending time in there, playing, reading books, like they have to love that sleep space in order to want to sleep there. So that's kind of where we would start. We also like to look at just like bridging separation. It's hard in the 0 to 12 month mark because there's a lot of safety factors and stuff, especially if you are like putting them in the crib or you are opting for a floor bed for a baby, which is also a possibility. You can do that in the safest way possible, but you can't have like blankets or pillows in there. Loveys are not recommended. So they connect and attach through the senses in the first year. So again, we're like, okay, the only options we really have there are like things like scent. So like spilling some breast milk on the sheets to help it smell like mom. You can warm the sleep space before putting them down. So little things like that. But it is kind of tricky to bridge that separation that they might be feeling. But it does get a little bit easier in the toddler stage, which is again, another reason why I like to just wait until that point in time, is because you can add things like, okay, let's add like a small like body kind of pillow, put one of mom's t-shirts on it, give them some of that proprioceptive input that they're feeling by being next to you. As they get older, I think it's 5, I want to say, so a little bit on the older side. Weighted blankets are also really helpful for kind of meeting that proprioceptive input. I know that there's blankets that are marketed to like younger toddlers. You'd have to like use your own discrepancy with that. But I believe it's 5. They say you're not supposed to have a weighted blanket before that. Although there are like weighted sleep sacks for babies that, again, it's just more so Health Canada. Yeah, AAP, they don't recommend them. But at the same time, there are some highly, highly sensitive babies that are not going to be able to sleep without that proprioceptive input. And I think there's a time and place for that. And you have to use your own, do your own research and make your decision based off of that. But it does meet kind of that sensory need of having that person beside you, that pressure. And a lot of kids need that to calm down and kind of regulate. And that's a lot of reasons why we have highly sensitive babies who are sleeping with their parents instead of their crib, because they just don't like being in that big open crib without somebody nice and close to them.
I think that's a really great tell to realize that your child needs that sensory input before they fall asleep. So trying to implement that throughout the day, right before bedtime, as much as you possibly can. Of course, they want to fall asleep to like your warm, like big body right next to you. But at least if you're trying to do that throughout the whole day and right before bedtime, like, you know, the deep pressure hugs, squeezes, massages, all that stuff, like, this is based on their temperament too. So their sensory needs, we talk about sensory needs and doing that throughout the day and right before bedtime all the time. Like for all kids, like all kids love it, but some kids really crave it more than others. And you have to see what they crave and what they don't like. Cause some people are like, oh my gosh, my child's nonstop. They're so active, but they hate massages. I'm like, all right. So they're just craving more that like the motion and like that type of sensory input. They need to move before they fall asleep to really calm their bodies down. And just another thing I wanted to add before the 12-month mark, like you said, it's obviously a little bit trickier to get them into their bed, their own sleep space without you. But we want to look at like setting them up for optimal sleep at that point and just understanding and educating families on the normal patterns of infant sleep. Like it is very normal for them to want you and need you and sleep really close to you. And if they're not set up for optimal sleep based on their unique sleep needs, as soon as you transfer them, they're going to wake up right away. And you're going to think there's something wrong. There's probably not. And there could be, sometimes medically there is things going on. If they're like laying on their back and they wake up right away crying, they could be uncomfortable because they can't breathe properly, or their airways obstructed somehow, or discomfort in their body, whatever. There's a lot of things. We have a whole red flag episode, so I don't want to get all into it, but also just like understanding that they also don't like that separation. So you can really tell with your child, like if you know, like even if your baby's like a chest sleeper and they cannot go on their back, there's probably something going on. So just like things to keep in mind under the 12-month mark, because they can communicate things with you, and you don't want to go past that 12-month mark of like something underlying medically going on, because then they're going to keep going through it. You know what I mean? But like you said, the toddlerhood is where you can really bridge more stuff and incorporate more things, and that really does help with that separation.
Totally. And just to touch too on like the sleep foundations that you mentioned, that's a huge aspect as well. Is like so many families are just kind of going with the flow, napping whenever, not paying attention to wake windows, and they're like, okay, we bed share at night because it works for us. It's easier. They sleep a little bit better. An over or under tired child in general will sleep a little bit better in contact with a caregiver. So that's what makes it really tricky. Especially, it's the same thing when I move away from contact naps with families, is like if those wake windows are not on point, and I mean on point, like difference of 15 minutes can be the variable of whether or not you're able to transition your sleeping child into their own sleep space. Because if they go down a little bit undertired, a little bit overtired, they're going to stay in this lighter dozy state of sleep, and they're going to be very aware when you put them into their sleep space. So if we have a child that's already waking up excessively at night, even while bed sharing, I want to get to the root of why that's happening to begin with before you even attempt to move away from bed sharing, because then you're just going to be going back and forth between two rooms or sleeping in there the whole night yourself, which is totally fine too. That's a great way to transition and gradually move away from that. But if I have a super, super restless baby or toddler, I'm like, why are we so restless to begin with? Like, are we bed sharing just out of pure survival? And a lot of families are, because of the wake ups being so frequent. Like, why are the wake ups so frequent to begin with? So making sure that those foundations are in place, as you mentioned, ruling out any of those red flags. Iron's a really, really big one, as well as like the airway stuff that you mentioned, reflux, stuff like that. Again, go check out the hourly wakes red flag episode for more information on that. But if like your child's not set up for optimal sleep, they're going to wake up a whole bunch at night. It doesn't matter. But I think the sleep training industry will tell you like the reason they're waking up so much is because you're sleeping with them. And that's not the case at all. I mean, there are some that will sleep a little bit better, you know, they do sleep deeper when they're away from you. But if I have a child that's waking up, you know, a few times a night, yeah, sometimes when you put them into their own sleep space, they will sleep a little bit better. But if they're waking up multiple times a night, there's probably a reason going on. We need to get to the root of that first before making this transition.
Yeah. I talk with some families who are like, oh, they wake up so much when they sleep with me, and none of us get good sleep because like we're waking each other up, right? Like if a little movement wakes your child up, there's probably something very off with their sleep foundations, right? Or they are uncomfortable, or they're not in that deep state of sleep because something, like you said, is underlying going on. Like you're their safest person ever. They should sleep so soundly right next to you. And if they're not, then there's something, like we said, going on. But obviously, like we know that we don't always get the best sleep when we're all together in bed. But it really just depends on the size of your child, the age of your child, and like what's going on.
And that's the thing too. I think that's the whole point of bed sharing. Like the bed sharing is supposed to get you better sleep. So when I have a family who's like, I'm waking up so frequently while bed sharing, I'm like, why? The whole point of that is to get better sleep. I mean, as I mentioned, we do have some kids who do like their space a little bit more, but you'll notice that they're sleeping, like they might be waking up a little bit at night, they're like rolling away from you, right? They're wanting their own space. That would be an indication to me that I'm like, okay, maybe they want to get into their own sleep space, and it is a good time to make that transition and stuff. So looking at your child, noticing those things and stuff that are going on overnight will indicate kind of if they're ready. And I mean, if you're ready, that's okay. It is okay to make a parent-led change and transition away from this gradually, and keeping in mind your child's temperament and sensory needs and stuff. So talking to your child, again, as a toddler, this is a little bit easier about this transition. Definitely helps, kind of prepping them, just using simple language, never involving like a younger sibling, because we work with a lot of families who are like, okay, new baby comes, I want to bed share with that baby now. Let's get our toddler into their own sleep space and stuff. We don't want to blame the child. We don't want any sibling rivalry going on or anything like that. So something that can be helpful with that situation though is like setting up another floor bed in your room as like kind of a backup for the toddler kind of a situation, but that's a whole other thing. But that has worked well for some of the families that I've worked with too. But making sure that you're communicating that with your child about this transition, just not blaming the younger child, because that can cause some problems and stuff too.
Yeah. You can also like, I know the goal is probably transitioning away, but like if your toddler's behind your back and your baby's on the side, like the toddler's not going to go over. Like you are going to be in a light state of sleep as a nursing mother or a new mother, even if you're not nursing, when you're bed sharing with your baby, because that's just what biologically happens. We're in a light state of sleep.
Yeah.
There to like, take care of our baby. It's okay if they're on the back of you. If they're bigger, it's okay if they're with dad. It's okay if dad's with the toddler. Like, you might have to divide and conquer for a bit, and it's just a phase, especially if your toddler's having a hard time with the transition, because we talk about this a lot too. Like, a lot of the times families are ready to transition out of bed sharing because the next baby comes. So we want to make sure that your toddler, like you said, is not feeling bad, not like it's their fault that, we're not getting good sleep or anything like that, or it's the new baby's fault. Like, just making sure that they feel safe and secure in their new sleep space too, or like you said, another sleep space for them or for the baby. We love our sidecar cribs. Those are really great options too. Yeah. So at least there's an extension, but just like you said, little things in mind.
Totally. And that's kind of what we did with Aylin. Like, she was sleeping in her own bed at that point in time. And I knew we had the sidecar crib, and I knew I was going to have kind of part-time bed share with Luna because I was lazy and I was like, I'm not getting out of bed. But we've always had an open bed policy. Like, if either of my kids wake up, they can come into bed with us. They don't, but the option's there. And I think that eases some of the anxiety. Like, even when they don't want to go, like, occasionally Aylin will be like, can I just sleep in your bed tonight? I'm like, let's just start out in here and see how it goes. You're always allowed to come into my bed though, but maybe just because I have to put away laundry or whatever, I'll make up some type of excuse. And she's like, okay. She never does, but like, that eases the anxiety around it. So having that open bed policy has always been helpful. But if she did come into bed, my kids are 3 years apart, so she was very aware of like what was allowed near her sister and what wasn't, depending on the child. Some 3-year-olds are not that aware. Mine was. So she knew that she could come and sleep on this back side of me while I was, in the seat curl position and stuff with her sister. She knew she could have no pillows, no blankets. So that did work for us whenever she did come into bed. So I just kind of laid out the safety stuff. So if you are going and wanting to make this transition because you have a new baby coming, these are some options if you're not fully set on completely stopping the bed sharing and you want to share with 2 kids. So as we kind of mentioned, this transition is going to look different for every single family. It's going to depend on your goals and stuff. But I do recommend, if your child is still napping, just starting with naps. I find that's the easiest place to start because it gets them kind of used to the sleep space. Again, we're telling you to like spend a bunch of time in there during the day. So just starting with naps first is usually the easiest way to go. And then once that's kind of going well, you can start to do it for like the first part of the night. Your setup is going to kind of depend a little bit on like what works best for you. Obviously, the crib is like, if you're really wanting the crib to be the plan, you can also take the mattress out of the crib, put that on the floor and lay down, support your child just to get them used to the crib mattress, because a crib mattress is a lot more firm than probably your adult mattress that should also be firm if you are bed sharing. But it is a good way to kind of get them used to sleeping on that sleep space, especially for naps. You can just quickly pop that out, put it on the floor, support them to sleep, transfer them, or lay with them awkwardly beside it and try to get them to sleep that way. I usually recommend sticking with the same sleep associations you've always been using. So for example, too, if you're a nursing mom and you usually just kind of side nurse, that's why I find it helpful to go for a bigger bed as opposed to a toddler bed. I hate toddler beds. They're so awkward and uncomfortable. You can't really support your child to sleep comfortably there. And I'm big on what works best for me and my comfort. So even a twin size bed is acceptable, and having that mattress just on the floor initially. Obviously there's 4 bed setups that you want to kind of go and take a look at and stuff to avoid like mold and all of that kind of stuff. There is some safety factors with that, but just starting simple with like a mattress on the floor is totally acceptable. And then you can look into like a frame and all of that kind of stuff too. But I find it easiest to just like lay with them, support them to sleep. You can start with just the first part of the night with that. And then at their first wake up, you can either choose to join them or bring them into your bed at that point in time, depending on what time of night this is. Again, if they're waking up super frequently for that first part of the night, foundations are probably not in place. We need to go back to the drawing board on that. I find that just focusing on that first part of the night kind of allows you to just have your like initial independent stretch. You can go do whatever you need to do in the evening and then bring your child into bed with you at that point or join them. And then you can kind of build on that and just start pushing that out a little bit more and a little bit more until eventually they are sleeping the whole night in their own sleep space. Or, you can join them and then eventually just wake up and go back to your own bed if you're able to stay awake. I think that was kind of tricky for me, as I'd always just like go in and fall asleep. My girls are on a king size bed that they share, so there was lots of space for me. You can tell that like comfort was very important to me. I was like, if I'm falling asleep here, it's going to be comfortable. So that's what we recommend, just one wake up at a time, making it super, super gradual. And that can take months. If you have a super easygoing child, it could take a couple weeks and then you're kind of good to go. But there never needs to be a time where you're like, I'm just going to leave you to cry yourself to sleep in your crib to stop bed sharing. Like that doesn't have to be a thing. And the same thing goes for like when you're dealing with like a tiny little baby where you're just making changes. It would be the exact same situation, just starting with naps, really, really slow, first part of the night in the crib, and then kind of just building on that really gradually. Like they need to get used to the sleep space in order to start to feel safe enough to sleep there.
Yeah. And if you're letting your baby cry alone in their sleep space, that's not going to make them feel
No.
safe. They're going to, especially like we see a lot of toddlers who have been sleep trained when they were babies, and then they regress into toddlerhood and they're, walking out of their bed and going to the door, trying to go to their parents' room like over and over and over again. It's because that separation anxiety really peaks at that point because they were previously sleep trained, or even not if they were sleep trained, we see separation anxiety peak around that age. So it's understandable that if your toddler wakes up and they're looking for you, they're going to want to come to you or they're going to call for you because they want you in the middle of the night. Like, it's so unrealistic to expect our 18-month-old toddler to sleep all night long without calling out to us at all. It's like so many things are coming up for them at that time. So like you said, like, do not change any sleep associations at this time. Like, I would not change anything crazy or big during this time. If you really want to transition before a new baby comes, try to do it, like you said, a couple months, at least a month, I would say, before a baby. Like, well, you obviously don't know when your baby's going to come exactly, but like try to prepare or at least have the conversations and like prepare and talk about it. And you might just totally be okay with like a whole family bed sharing situation. But if you're not, it's great to start that because we don't want to wean and transition away from bed sharing and start preschool all in the same month. That's just a lot for your kids, especially kids who have a really hard time in transitions and just have a hard time adapting to things. And I would just take it one step at a time. Your priorities, like, where do your priorities lie? Like, what's the biggest goal that you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah. It's going to vary so much family to family.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is those foundations. Figure that out first. Decide on like where you want your child to sleep and how quickly you want to move through that process. And you have to take temperament into consideration. Mm-hmm. And then you can kind of make a plan. But just like one thing at a time is good. Because like trying to make changes around sleep associations while trying to put them into their own room, like that's essentially like why I think sleep training is just so crazy. Because it's like, hey, you've been sleeping with me for this long. We've only been contact napping. I'm going to put you in your crib and I'm also not going to give you any sleep associations and you're going to figure it out. It's just like, well, that seems excessive. Very unrealistic expectations for this small baby or toddler. Like, totally. It's not going to work out.
It's just the fear of thinking like we can't support our children to sleep, right? Like, I mean, a lot of people that are listening probably know our spiel and know what we do. But if this is the first time you ever listening to us talking, like, it's so unrealistic for a baby, toddler, young child not to need any support to fall asleep. Like, any support at all, especially if you have a highly sensitive child. And if you have a child that has fear and anxiety around sleep, it's because it's the separation. Like, they truly, they say they see monsters or like they have nightmares. That's the separation from us. And it's so big. And, I don't know if I talked about this in the last podcast. I probably did. Like, I don't have anxiety around sleep. Like, I don't think I've ever had. Like, I don't feel afraid to go to sleep. I don't feel afraid because my mom really did nurture that sleep when we were very little. And I think that's a really beautiful thing. And to like, obviously as I got bigger, even though it was like 10 years old, 12, 15, if I had a nightmare, I would go away with my mom and like she would comfort me. And it was just like so beautiful. And now as grown adults, we have our partners usually next to us comforting us. Like, even if I have a bad dream as an adult, I like wake up like startled and like I just touched Dave and I feel so much better because he's right there. And like, even though I know I'm an adult, it's not a real dream and it wasn't real and I'm safe. Like, just that reassurance of my person who I love most in this world is right next to me. Like, that's why our children need us.
As an adult.
As an adult.
It's so crazy.
I know, with a fully developed brain. I'm an adult with a fully developed brain. And I need that contact, closeness, and connection. And like, even our children see this and need this. And it's so like, we can transition away very gradually and gently and still responsively. It's so possible. And we've both done it. And we've helped families do it. And we just have that huge fear of like, you're never allowed in our bed. I think once we put that label to our children, it's like something like, oh, you can't have that cookie or you can't do that. It's like, you want it more.
Focus on
it. Focus on it. They want it more. So if you're dwelling in that separation, right? If you keep focusing on that separation, like, you're going to sleep alone. You have to do this on your own. You're a big girl now. Try not to use that language either. You can stay away from it.
Avoid that.
Because they're going to harp on that and they're going to focus it like, oh, they're going to feel disappointed if they don't sleep alone. I'm not a big girl now. It's like, I understand that language is thrown around a lot. We try very careful still not to use that language. Remember, your child's only 2 years old. They've only been alive for 2 years and you want to have them sleep completely alone without you, without your presence for 12 hours straight. It's very unrealistic. So just trying to understand that. It's just like the fear of like, if you do open up your bed, you're never going to get them out like ever again. And I know this podcast is about helping families transition out of their bed. But once they hear like it's okay to do it for the time being, like it's okay to, even if let's say you transition and it's a beautiful transition into one grade and then they get sick and you bring them back to their bed, like you can go back to it. Like you can always go back
to it. Aylin came into our bed consistently. I remember she had eye surgery when she was 5, and she slept and would wake up and come into our bed for a month straight. Did I worry or stress about it? I was like, no. She had an operation. That was traumatizing for her. Of course she wants to be close to us at night. Like, of course. It just made sense to me. But I think that the way that society pushes this and makes you feel like if you let them into your bed, you're never going to get them out. I mean, I do get comments like that. It's like, well, good luck with that. Like, my 8-year-old is still sleeping in my bed. And I'm like, I don't live in your house. I don't know how you parent your child. So, I mean, I can't really give a blanket kind of advice on that, but it makes me feel like hi Dave.
Hi.
Hi. It makes me feel like I'm like wondering, okay, are you a parent who doesn't have any boundaries in place in regards to your child? Do you support their emotions? Like, what is going on in your day-to-day life that your 8-year-old would still want to be in your bed all the time and never want to sleep independently? That makes me wonder, I'm like, is there some anxiety going on? Like, I can't ask all those questions. I haven't worked with your family, but when people put those comments on those posts and are like, well, good luck with that. Like, you're going to have an 8-year-old in your bed for, X amount of years. I just like,
or an 18-year-old in your bed.
My kids don't even really want to sleep in my bed. And I have an open bed policy and they come to my bed all the time because of the things that I focus on during the day and how I parent them.
I know we're just talking about transitioning out of the bed, but also that's very normal for our kids to want to sleep in bed. And I wanted him to come in because I knew that we would talk about it. Nora's actually been on our bed the past couple nights because she has had so much fear and anxiety around sleeping. Like, she's afraid to go to sleep because she was afraid of having nightmares, because she has really like scary nightmares and she wakes up from them or she remembers them the next morning and she'll talk about them in detail, like nightmares about car accidents and nightmares about getting eaten like by wolves. Like, really,
I was just gonna bring up the wolves in the door situation.
Yeah,
I know it's a huge fear of her.
She thinks there's wolves in that door in the hole that come out of the hole, and it's just, and what did she just say to us the one night? This is why we let her sleep in our bed, because we both were so heartbroken by how she said it. We're like, she's like, I really am afraid to sleep in my bed. We're like, why? Like, what's wrong? Trying to talk to her about it. She's like, when I wake up and I look around, no one's there. I'm all alone. And we're like, all right, come on, come in. You're coming in. So,
but it makes sense, right? I mean, she's going to be 6 years old and her imagination is going like crazy. And she's a kid that wants to get in and understand and think about every dynamic of a situation or a story or any theoreticals that could happen. Like, she's the kid that wants to stay up and catch Santa Claus, and she'll figure out how to do it and won't go to sleep because she's thinking about it for 30 minutes before bed.
Yeah.
So her brain is wired like that a little bit more. But I mean, it's typical for kids 5 and 6 to start having these fears big time, and for her to say, I want to come into bed, she understands, we'll allow it and create that safe space like we always have. So she moves around a lot because she has those nightmares, and we try to work with it and figure it out. But we also understand, it's important to give her that security again, so she can then, as she's going through this developmentally, she'll come out on the other side with a secure attachment.
Yeah. Yeah. And if she does start wiggling or like, you can tell her nightmare's coming, or, she just, like she's whining a little bit. We put our hand on her and she's fine. Like, if she's in her room, she'll start screaming loud. And sometimes she'll wake up from it and sometimes she won't. So we're like, and we even tell her the next morning, like, how did everything go? And like, you started moving around and we put our hand on you, and she just like so happy about it. And she just feels like so much better. But obviously this week we're going to work on like building up her confidence around being in her room, and obviously knowing that she's still not alone, and we're going to be there for her, because we don't mind the bed sharing once in a while. We definitely wouldn't do it 24/7 every single night.
Yeah.
Agree. It is a little
mover though. Like, she moves around a lot.
She's just
right?
big.
Well,
I mean, she's so
and she's also
like, she goes, her head's on me and her feet are on Dave, and like we have a king bed. It's still not big.
Sleeping in an H shape.
Yes, she's in an H.
Exactly.
And last night was okay. She slept okay, or maybe you disagree. I slept fine.
I found that because Aylin used to do that, would like slowly pivot.
Yeah.
Luna doesn't really, I don't know. I've come in and because they sleep together, Luna's like on the other side of the bed. I'm like, what did you do? She's like, she just rolled over top of me in her sleep at some point in time. I don't know, Mom. But Aylin would like switch into that H shape. And I would find that if I put a pillow on this side of her head and a pillow on this side, it stopped the pivoting slightly. She would stay in one spot. So that's a tip for you guys. I don't know. She probably still wants a pillow, but.
The one night he was so mad, he like put a pillow next to him, but like he put it on top of her. And I'm like in the middle of the night, I'm like, you're suffocating her. He's like half asleep and he doesn't know what's happening. She's almost 6, so she's okay. You can't do that to a baby. But like everything was fine. But obviously we're in agreement of this is okay right now and it's not going to be forever because we know that we can get her back into her bed. We've done this before. She's been in our bed when she was sick. She's been in our bed when she's had surgeries. Like she's been in our bed during hard times, and we got
because she's a confident little girl who will go back to her own sleep space because she feels safe and secure. It's like all about what you guys have done, and it definitely helps having a husband who's very well versed in all this attachment stuff because I think there's a lot. Did you tell him that I saw him in the comments on that one video?
Oh yeah, I did.
Yeah, I've been commenting on people's reels more. But because it's so important to be an advocate for this this space, right? And teach moms, young moms of multiple children are trying to look into this. Like, there's another way, and this is the biological wiring, right? Like, this is the truth of our biology. We need the attachment. We're not isolated people. We're not a species that works by themselves. We are codependent on each other, physical, mental, spiritual, all of the above, So it's just super important that message of truth gets out. So I've become a big advocate for it and a voice. And I think as a male, I think it's
huge. Yeah. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Totally, because what's the number one thing we always hear is that co-sleeping or bed sharing ruins marriages. Clearly it doesn't, because there's those co-sleeping families have 5 or 6 kids. So it's happening.
They're figuring it out.
They figure it out. So that's obviously we know is not true. It doesn't ruin marriages. And I just read something too, actually listened to something. It was co-sleepy. Oh my gosh, her name Tiffany from Co-Sleepy is like, listen, if you think co-sleeping is ruining your marriage, there's something wrong with your marriage before the baby came. I was just gonna
say that. I'm like, it was probably already broken.
Yeah.
No offense, but that's how it's true.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, parenting is stressful and it magnifies, maybe issues that were quite small in your relationship initially and then makes them a lot bigger. But there was something going on before that. As a mom, it's super, super difficult to have a partner who is not on board with this type of parenting. And I feel like those are all conversations you should have before you have kids, but they're not. Like, it's like with Lane, I'm like, I just got lucky. He just was fully on board with whatever I wanted to do, has educated himself, and that's great. But like, it's not like we actually had conversations beforehand about any of this. We just were fortunate enough to, I mean, I wasn't educated on it at all. And we tried sleep training with Aylin. That's how I started doing all of this. And he was not on board with that. I'm pretty sure I tried it when he was not home. So he would have been like, this is weird. And why are we doing this? And I'm like, she has to self-soothe. Yeah. But no. It's nice that he's just like, no, that's messed up and we're not doing that. And like, I got a text from a girlfriend recently who I'm helping, and they're working on moving away from bed sharing. I think I mentioned her at the beginning of the podcast, but she got a message from another mom who I was pretty sure was trying to sell her some MLM sort of thing. So it was like, hey babe, like, nah, nah, nah. Anyways. And she was like, oh, like, how's sleep going and stuff? And she's like, oh, like, not good. I've been waking up hourly because her baby's like 5 months old now. And she's like, oh, have you ever thought of like sleep training? And then she goes, and then she follows up with the comment goes, no judgment either way. And I'm like, why would you judge us for not sleep training?
It's pushed everywhere, and it's just unfortunate, especially when it comes to this.
Anytime I hear sleep training, I just want to change the training, because we all know it's not training. You're not training anything. You can't train something that student, or in this case the baby, doesn't understand. How can you train something that doesn't understand? Like, cannot
alone. It's the only training you do all by yourself.
Right. It's not training. And neglection might be too hard.
It is a little harsh.
I don't want to say harsh, but like, there's got to be, it's not training, right? So I think about that all the time. And what could a good term be for that?
Well, especially we're not training because sleep is a biological function. We don't need to train sleep because they're born knowing how to sleep. We all know how to sleep, right? So it's like, that's why it's always so silly too. So we need to coin the term something different.
I honestly, I just look at it as like, you're just forcing a child to fall asleep independently. That's all it is. And you're also telling the parent that that's how they're going to connect sleep cycles. And I just think that we all know that's a load of crap.
The more you know, right, then your expectations change, but for the better, right? And then there's empowerment in education and understanding what actually works. And then the expectation moves, but you're okay with it, and that's something that you guys can consistently do. You empower moms to feel okay and confident with their choices. That, hey, the expectation was, by 4 months, I'm going to get, by 8 months, I'm going to have my baby. But it's not realistic, and you teach them realistic expectations, and then they feel empowered, be like, no, this is actually how it's supposed to go. And I'm okay with that. That's really cool.
Good job, honey. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to connect with us beyond the podcast. You can find me on all social media platforms at moonbay.sleep. And for more sleepy goodness, you can head over to Instagram and follow Eleni at Rooted in Sleep. Until next week, keep embracing the chaos.